Well, it's time for the weekly podcast, and it's another Tuesday, and it's a sunny day, and we've got a lot of people out, so this is going to be a good one. Life is good, and we're heading up to the sprint zone, coming up County Road 5. We've got Steve Highland and Tony at the front, who pretty much did a lot of the work up there, so pretty much they're telegraphing that they are, in fact, good to go here. Coming into the stop sign, things are looking good, and this time I'm really appreciative of what Steve does in the lead. Complete stop when there's traffic. Tony follows suit as did everybody else. So this was perfect. Doesn't get any better than that, and that's what I think everyone should do every week. So it looks like for some reason Tony doesn't want to have any part of being on Steve's wheel right now. He's getting a drink after a lot of work and pulling off into the dirt. I believe Greg had an issue, and I believe Dean was going to pull off and help him. So I slot back into the field. I don't want to go too far back because that's just dangerous and it's going to be a lot of work. So I'm slotting in here, slowly closing the gap, and we're looking pretty solid, but there seems to be some lethargy. There goes Dean pulling off, waiting for Greg. So there's one engine we're not going to have. And up front already, there's a dangerous gap between, it looks like, Ian, and you've got Steve and Tony up front. Tony and Steve are definitely one of the most dangerous riders. Not only are they the strongest, but they got the nicest bikes, and they clearly have telegraphed that they are good to go today. So it looks like Tony going out front, probably because somebody said car back. Nice job, guys. And Steve's in second wheel. Even now, I'm on my gravel bike, and this is going to be hard. I'm throwing out a lot of wattage, and looking at the numbers here, this is a lot harder than I thought. And we're looking at, the 2 and 300 ranges. This is just the beginning, and we aren't going that fast yet. So it's going to be a lot of work. So it looks like I can see that Tony's pulled off, and it looks like maybe Steve Highland and him are going head to head up there next to each other. Everyone's slotting in, though. There's a little bit of a wind out of the southeast, and there's a slight echelon, so I'm not certain why Kent is still off to the right there, not getting any shelter. But should I complain? No, because I'm getting shelter and life is good. I mean, and you can see the slight echelon up front, and this is where the savvy rider or racer wants to save as much energy as possible, unless you got so much energy or you need to be cooled or whatever, or you just don't trust the wheels in front of you. Any of those reasons are probably good enough not to follow. So, wattage is down, coming into the corner. It looks like Steve Highland probably up front, Tony second, Ian on the third wheel. Good move by Ian to be up there early on, because everyone knows that if you are not there around this corner, you could easily be found caught back. So there's the move right there. So it looks like Steve Highland goes to the front with a nice surge into this corner, and corner's hard. Tony was caught off guard or just didn't have the confidence to go with him, and there you've got a dangerous gap. Ian looks back, looking for some help back here. Looks like that might be Steve here. He realizes what's going on and makes the closure. Ian slots back, and we're throwing in some good wattage. I'm looking at my numbers. Look, 400, 450 watts already, and we're just chasing, and it looks like the game is definitely afoot. And, I've got a knife here. I can't really contribute that much, but it's going to be a lot for me to even try to close this down, if I can at all. So it looks like Kent comes up, happy to do some of the work. I'm getting a little bit of shelter here. I'm not certain who's going to come through behind Kent. Probably no one for a while. Kent looks back, see if people are still there. Nice move. So it looks like what we got here out front, we got Tony in No Man's Land. We got, I think that's the other Steve in No Man's Land chasing. He made that hard acceleration. And I'm going to be blunt here. This is totally like Cat 5. So Steve had made the big move up front. And unless you've got a lot of hubris, you are not going to bring him back on your own. And that corner was going to string people out so that if they did manage to catch you, they're probably not going to have a lot of steam left to be able to help you. So enough said about that. So here I am on my gravel bike out front, trying to bring things back, hoping that someone's going to come and give me some relief here. But I want to keep it up so that if someone comes by, I'll be able to get on the wheel. So we're looking at this, like 200, 260 watts, whatever. This is a lot for me. And I can see that this is going to be a problem for me to shut this down. Look, 300 watts, no one's coming by. Finally, some help by Ian. So I'm kind of surprised here. So Ian's like a big guy. He's got a decent FTP or whatever. But where are the other big guys? They're just sitting in back there. And if we really wanted to make something happen and bring back Steve, we should have done something long ago. So that ship has sailed. Everybody here is racing for second place. And I don't think Tony's going to be able to stay out there by himself. So, we had not enough coordination early on. So we're all bunched up here. But even looking at my numbers now, that's like 200, 300, 400 watts thrown in there, and we're not in the line. So there's a lot of disorganization here. I'm not quite certain I understand it. We got Rick finally takes some of the helm here. We got, looks like Justin on his wheel. Like, those guys should have been a little more cognizant early on. But, that's the sprint zone. Some weeks everyone sits in and, there's no serious move. I would have thought that back in the old days when Matthew Michaels had made that move, people would have been like, hey, we can't let certain people get away. And people like Tony and Steve Hyland, like maybe even Dean, Matthew Michaels, those are people to watch, and you can't let them get away. But we did. So life is pretty good. I'm like struggling here, trying to stay in. Look at that wattage. We're looking at 500 watts as somebody punches this, trying to make this ground up. So Tony's got to be throwing a lot of wattage down to be staying away from us for this long. And by looking at the map, Tony's been away from us for 2 miles, because this is basically the halfway point. And it looks like this effort by a lot of people, and whoever was up front was probably putting out as much wattage as I was, 500-600 watts, and the bigger guys even more. And it looks like Grupo Compacto, except for Steve. So Tony gets reeled in, a lot of wasted effort there, but we're still ramming and a thumping. I can see around here that there's no way we're going to be able to bring like Steve back. And I wish I would have had some of his power numbers. That would have been cool to see what's actually going on. So Kent is off to the right a little bit, still not quite in the echelon. I'm not complaining because I got draft, but I'm thinking he'd be saving probably 30 watts if he were just a little bit to the left of like the other Steve up there. But whatever. Some people just don't trust the wheels or whatever, but with only like 3 or 4 people, and these are actually pretty good wheels, I would have been like on that, saving some wattage. So here I pull through, still some good wattage thrown out. So we're ramming and a thumping. It's not easy back here, and there's still big engines back there not doing anything, and I don't know if they care that we're struggling, or perhaps it's their goal just to make it to the end, because a lot of people, it's just like, I just want to sit in, I don't want to contribute to the chase. My goal is to make it to the end, which, it's a good goal. It's early in the season, but it seems embarrassing that, like, here I am on my gravel bike, and I'm up here, like, doing more work, because the closer to the front you are, there's more work. Like, some people think, well, you're in the draft. No, that's not actually the case. The further back, the better the draft is. So looks like Kent's got a better position now, in the draft, in the echelon, much better. It looks like, is that Justin up there? No, it's Steve, the other guy. Throwing down some nice wattage. Had we all been together earlier on, it might have been a different story. So there's some bumps, no problem. I was tempted to ride through with my gravel bike because, it's tubeless and it's gravel, but I didn't. So we got Tony out there, out near the yellow line. He's not getting any shelter. No one's behind him. If he had moved over a little bit, he would have gotten something. I'm not really certain what Tony's doing out there. Was he expecting a swarm to come? And then he kind of sits up. I don't know. So there goes Kent. If Tony was going to cover something, he should have covered Kent right here. He waits for the other Steve to go in. I'm like, who was just doing all the work on the front to cover this. Now Tony decides this is dangerous. He's going to cover. So I'm having a hard time on the gravel bike, even trying to close this gap down. But I managed to struggle up here, barely. But this is I'm just burning tons of matches here. And now the big men start to come through that we're sitting in. So there's Eric, really strong rider, makes more or less of an attack. because it's very difficult for us to get back on, and he's got a gap already. So if this was supposed to be some sort of coordinated effort to bring people back, or is it an attempt to get second place, let's assume it's going to be second place because it wasn't very helpful for our coordination. So Kent can't do it. Look, Tony has plenty of energy here. I'm like, I'm thinking, why didn't you stay with Steve in the first place? But anyway, here come the rest of the wheel suckers. I'm pretty much at my limit right now, and so pretty much game over for me as I just watch the riders fade off into the distance. Time for me to like just recover. And we got another like 20 miles or so to go, so I figure, let's recover and wait for us to turn around. But even still, the 150, 170, 180 watts, that's not horrible. But it's nothing compared to what the other guys were throwing down. As you can see, getting swarmed, they had plenty to blow by me. Yeah, I know. I brought a knife to a gunfight, and I shouldn't have done that. I was thinking I'd get some good workout in. I'd sit behind Ilka, Isla, some of the other riders, maybe Brandon, that weren't that, in for the melee. But pretty much that didn't happen today. Pretty much everyone had game, and I was left out in the, basically off the back. Oh well, that's life. So a good time was had by all. Tactically, there's a lot to be desired here. Maybe some people will take notice that when Dangermen are up front, you just can't let that go, and you got to react quickly. And if you're gonna react, try to do it as a group. If you got hubris, if you could close that gap, Matthew Michaels would have been able to do it. I think like early on. Dean Davis, I think, has the strength to do it. But that's pretty much it from the regular posse. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening to this podcast. A good time was had by all. Incidentally, I did ask Tony for his power numbers because I thought it would have been interesting, but he's like, I didn't want to be embarrassed and show all that, so okay, I'm good with that. Peace out, everyone. And there looks like our winner coming back. Yay! And I tucked back in. Alright, guys, that's it.